So I'm with Attieh Fard in the Wharf Road Car Park in Frimley Green. And for the first time since doing these video updates in my newsletter, I've invited somebody on to discuss something. So you have you've had a campaign going. You set up a petition quite some time ago to do with car parking charges in the public car parks across the borough. So first of all, just explain what that petition was.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, Paul. I really appreciate it. Yes, back in February, I heard that Surrey Heath Borough Council was considering further restrictions across car parks in Surrey Heath, and I read their strategy. And I was shocked because they were going to take away the 1 hour free parking and replace that with 30 minutes free parking, which has happened here.
Yeah.
They were also going to consider a business case for parking charges at Frimley Lodge Park and like Water Country Park.
Right.
And also they were going to take away the Sunday tariff and replace it with standard tariff on Sundays. Right. So I thought that's really bad for our businesses, for our residents. So I didn't want that for myself. So I set up a petition and wanted to know how many people were supportive of this. Yeah. And I wanted the signatures before council was going to make a decision on this strategy.
Right.
So within a matter of a few days, with your help and other people, we managed to gain more than 1,000 signatures.
Well, it was 1,700 in all, wasn't it?
Well, now it's 1,800.
Right.
Yeah, 1,808 to be precise.
Right.
But yes, at the time, yes. And I went to the council, put forward the petition, the outcome of the petition, but unfortunately it was ignored, and the residents were let down.
I want to talk about that in a minute, but just to put in some context to the residents I represent anyway, in Mytchett, Frimley Green and Deach. When I was a borough councillor, so people may know that I used to be a councillor at Surrey Heath Borough Council and decided, you remember that, and I decided last May not to restand in the borough elections for a number of reasons, but primarily that my county council responsibilities keep me busy enough. And I thought I'd given 12 years and I'd done enough there. But just before, about a year before I left the council and when it was in the control of the Conservatives, there was a proposal actually by the Conservative administration there.
I remember that,
right?
Yes.
And they were going to remove the free period.
Yes.
They were also going to increase car parking charges. And as a Conservative, I fought bitterly against my own group to prevent that from happening.
Yes,
I thought it was a big mistake. And and I had some quite let's say robust discussions with members of my own Conservative group. I also set up a survey which went out to residents, and in overwhelming numbers, like your petition, residents said no, they didn't want to see the free period removed from which then was 2 hours in car parks like this one at Wharf Road. They didn't want that free period removed. And they didn't want to see parking increases. Now, in politics, in local politics and national politics, there's got to be a bit of give and take. And in the end, I managed to get them to agree, instead of removing the free period altogether, which was the proposal, that they would settle on an hour. So we met halfway, from 2 hours to an hour, which, and I think residents understood that. And while they weren't necessarily entirely happy with it, they understood the rationale behind it and got behind it.
Yes. And it worked for businesses.
It did. It worked for local businesses, which we have here in Frimley Green, but also, which is, it's not a surprise to me, but was a surprise to local residents, that at the time, the Liberal Democrat councillors in the area all were supportive of me behind that. They were equally condemning the proposals and and made representations as such. Yet the moment they take control of the council, they do completely the opposite. They increase the car parking charges and remove that free period even more, from 1 hour down to half an hour. Now, if you look at this car park now, I don't know whether this is reflective. To be honest with you, as a cyclist, I don't drive that often, so I don't use this car park.
I use it often.
Is it always like this, empty now?
I haven't seen it full.
Right. Well, it used to be before.
Yes.
And now, that might be an indication of the impact that this is having on local businesses. I know that that when they put their business case forward, they were saying, oh, well, businesses are in support of it. Well, that's not what they were telling me. Was that what they were telling you?
Not at all. Well, first of all, thank you so much for fighting for this at the time that you were a borough councillor. I actually took part in your survey.
Right.
And I was so pleased that the changes were made as they were. But yeah, I've spoken with most of the businesses in Frimley Green. So I went around, knocked on doors, talked to the business owners, hairdressers and others, estate agents, beauticians. All of them said that this has had an impact, and they were against it. I spoke with some of their customers, and one of them said that she usually tries to park further away and has to walk to Frimley Green.
Well, that's another issue. That's another issue. And, we know residents just behind us on Deach Road have a problem with parking there, and people trying to avoid the charges, which means it's displaced some of that onto side streets that are already have problems with parking.
Absolutely. And, for hairdressers, for example, what they told me is that the half an hour doesn't help them at all, because sometimes the customers have to wait for half an hour before they can get their treatment or haircut. So it actually just doesn't make sense.
So for us men who have a quick shave with the clippers, half an hour might just if there's no queue.
Yeah.
But if you're a lady having your hair cut, I know my wife, when she has her hair coloured, it takes about 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah. And if you want to have a haircut, 45 minutes, if there is no queue.
Yeah.
And we have a number of hairdressers or hair salons around Frimley Green, so they have definitely been impacted by this.
Okay, so then at the council meeting that you appeared at and asked a question, not only did prior to that meeting, as a Liberal Democrat councillor, now I don't know whether it was inexperience or just because she knew you were a Conservative, dismissed it very publicly out of hand, but also at the meeting itself, they made a big they made a big deal of the fact that you are a Conservative. I have no idea what that has to do with anything. You're still a local resident. You set up a petition, which has been supported in overwhelming numbers, and people don't care what party somebody belongs to or supports. What they want to know is a substantive issue, which is car parking charges and the removal of any free period. They seem to dismiss that out of hand. So you've now set up a survey. You might get this through your door. I'll also share the QR code and the link on the back to get residents' views, to make sure that when you go to the next meeting to present your petition, that you are fully aware of what people think. Now they've had time to think about it and hear all the arguments.
And experience the impact.
And experience the impact of it as well, absolutely, because it's been in place now for some time.
Yes.
But what are you actually hoping to achieve at that meeting?
Well, I hope that councillors would listen to the residents. I think that's what we want, that they would listen and they would take action based on the residents' wishes. During the petition campaign, residents made it clear they didn't want the further restrictions. And I've now collected more than 400 survey responses. 96% of the people who have taken part are against the further restrictions. They have been supportive of the original petition.
Right.
They've also indicated that they have been impacted by the further restrictions and charges negatively. So that has had an adverse impact on both residents and businesses. And I hope that council, after listening and hearing, would reverse their decisions, because I hope that this is a temporary one until the full debate. And that at that meeting, that councillors would consider making a change.
Yeah, and I seem to remember when the Liberal Democrats, their campaign, which was very successful, they won control of the council, fair play to them and all that. But what they said at that time is that they wanted to bring about a more collaborative and consultative spirit with local residents and work with local residents. Well, if right now, then I don't see any evidence of that.
And let me tell you why I think that hasn't worked to date. Because they originally said that they published a consultation back in December, I think last year, perhaps. I'd never heard of it. other residents that I know hadn't heard of it. It wasn't widely publicised.
No.
None of the Conservative councillors I know, or other people that I know, but are not perhaps the part of the party that is running the council,
Right.
they weren't aware of it.
Right.
And, or at least people I have spoken with weren't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that didn't work at the time. When the petition was publicised, they didn't engage. I mean, I've invited everybody. I've written to our local MP now,
Right.
Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Right.
I've asked him if he's supporting this, the petition and the request.
Have you had a response?
I've had a generic holding response.
Right.
So I hope that he would be supportive. Our previous MP was supportive. On my Facebook post, I've asked all councillors of all parties to support this. I haven't heard back from many of the councillors, definitely not from the borough councillors representing me in Frimley Green, Mytchett and Deach.
They've not responded.
Places.
You've emailed them.
I'm about to email them, but I've put it on my Facebook. Yeah, so I hope that they would give a response.
Yeah.
Yes, and with the survey, I hope that they would consider this and the results and outcome on the residents.
And I would too.
Do calm down, please. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But if you're a borough councillor, and also Dr. Al Pinkerton, I would love to meet you. Come down with me. Let's go and talk to the businesses and residents together. Let's deliver these surveys together and see what people actually want.
That would be a consultative and collaborative spirit, which was promised in all their manifestos and after they were elected to the council. Okay, well, I hope local residents will get behind this. Even if you don't support Attieh's stance on this, do complete the survey. We want to hear from everybody, see what they've got to say, and then Attieh will present her findings at the council when she presents the petition. And hopefully the council will start listening to local residents and local businesses and work in that collaborative and consultative spirit in which was promised.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Attieh Fard, thank you very much.
Thank you.